Annexation Chapter 11 Taxation. Taxation of investors. The provision of income tax are contained in the Income Tax Act 1961, which extend to the whole of India. The Income Tax Act comprises of Chapter 1 to which include provision relating to the determination of the residential status of a person in India, exemption, computation of total income, reduction, determination of tax liability, filing of income tax return, the procedures for assessment, etc. Section 2, subsection 31 of ITA provides an inclusive definition of person. It provides that a person includes an individual, HUF, company, firm, association of person, body of individual, whether incorporated or not, local authority, and every artificial judicially person not falling within any of the above category. Person referred under clause E, F and G shall be deemed as person even if it is not formed or established or incorporated with the object of driving income, profits or gain. तो कहता है कि इनकम टैक्स के लिए जो है अगर कोई भी रेसिडेंशियल इंडियन सिटीज़न मतलब इंडिया का रेजिडेंट है तो उसको टैक्स देना पड़ेगा, उस स्लैब में आएगा। कौन कौन आ सकता है, कौन मतलब पर्सन की डेफिनेशन क्या है, तो पर्सन का डेफिनेशन बताया गया है कि पर्सन कौन कौन है, इंडिविजुअल है, एचयूएफ है, कंपनी है, फर्म है, एओपी है, बीओआई है। रेसिडेंशियल स्टेटस. इनकम टैक्स लाइबिलिटी ऑफ एन एसएससी इज कैलकुलेटेड ऑन बेसिस ऑफ हिज टोटल इनकम। ठीक है। What is to be included in the total income of SSE is greatly influenced by his residential status in India, and his citizenship is of no consequences. For example, a person resident in India is liable to pay tax in India on his total world income. On the other hand, a person who is citizen of India but non-resident in India during the year is liable to pay tax only on his Indian income. Total income of an SSE cannot be computed unless his residential status is determined. तो कह रहा है कि इनकम टैक्स की लाइबिलिटी उस मतलब ऑफ एन एसएससी कैलकुलेटेड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ हिज टोटल इनकम। ठीक है। तो किसी भी एसएससी का मतलब उसके टोटल इनकम पे टैक्स कैलकुलेट किया जाएगा, बट शर्त यह है कि वो रेसिडेंट मतलब इंडिया का रेसिडेंट होना चाहिए। सिटीज़नशिप अगर नहीं भी हो तो भी चलेगा, क्योंकि बहुत से केस में क्या होता है कि इंडिया का सिटीज़नशिप नहीं है बट इंडिया में रह रहा है तो डिम्ड माना जाता है, वो आगे देखेंगे हम। इंडिया इज़ लाइबल टू पे टैक्स इन इंडिया ऑन हिज टोटल इनकम। The residential status of an individual was determined on the basis of his period of stay in India. However, with effect from assessment year 2021-22, the residential status of an individual is determined on basis of his citizenship, period of stay in India and total income from Indian sources. तो कह रहा है कि residential status of an individual was determined on the basis of his पीरियड ऑफ स्टे इन इंडिया, मतलब इंडिया में कितने दिन रहा ये डिसाइड होगा कि मतलब कितने दिन इंडिया में रहा। उसके बाद से कहता है कि एनएसएससी कैन बी कैटेगराइज इनटू फॉलोइंग रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस ड्यूरिंग द प्रीवियस ईयर। एक या तो रेजिडेंट हो सकता है या फिर नॉन रेजिडेंट हो सकता है। ए रेजिडेंट इंडिविजुअल एंड एचयूएफ आर फर्दर सब क्लासिफाइड इनटू फॉलोइंग। फिर रेजिडेंट जो इंडिविजुअल हैं उसको कैटेगराइज किया गया है दो कैटेगरी में, एक रेसिडेंट एंड ऑर्डिनरी रेसिडेंट और दूसरा है रेसिडेंट बट नॉट ऑर्डिनरी रेसिडेंट। ए न्यू कैटेगरी ऑफ डीम्ड रेसिडेंट हैज़ बीन इंट्रोड्यूस्ड इन क्लॉज 1A ऑफ सेक्शन 6 ऑफ द ITA इनकम टैक्स एक्ट विथ इफेक्ट फ्रॉम असेसमेंट ईयर 2021-22। एज पर सेक्शन 6 subsection 1A of the ITA, an Indian citizen is deemed as resident in India irrespective of his stay in India if his total income excluding income from foreign sources An Indian citizen is deemed as resident in India irrespective of his stay in India if his total income excluding income from foreign sources here after effort has exceed 15 lakhs during the previous year, and he is not liable to pay tax in any other country or territory by reason of his domicile or residence or any other criteria of similar nature. Here income from foreign sources means income which accrues or arises outside India, except income driven from business control or profession set up in India, since it is deeming fiction created by law without reference to a stay in India. A deemed resident is always treated as नॉट ऑर्डिनरी रेजिडेंट. तो कह रहा है कि अगर इंडिया में वो नहीं रह रहा है बट वो फॉरेनर है, बट उसका जो सोर्स ऑफ इनकम है वो इंडिया से हो रहा है या फिर इंडिया में है, तो उसको हम डीम्ड इंडियन मानेंगे, डीम्ड रेसिडेंट मानेंगे. बट वो रेसिडेंट वाले कैटेगरी में नहीं आके नॉट ऑर्डिनरी रेसिडेंट वाले में आएगा. तो रेसिडेंशियल स्टेटस ऑफ एन इंडिविजुअल, तो इसको कैटेगराइज किया गया है कि ऑर्डिनरी रेसिडेंट इन इंडिया, रेसिडेंट बट नॉट ऑर्डिनरी रेसिडेंट इन इंडिया और डीम्ड रेसिडेंट. चौथा आ गया नॉन रेसिडेंट. एन इंडिविजुअल इज ट्रीटेड एज रेसिडेंट इन इंडिया इफ़ ही स्टेज या तो 182 दिन या फिर उससे ज़्यादा रह रहा है पिछले साल, तो उसको रेसिडेंट इन इंडिया माना जाएगा, या फिर 60 days or more but less than 182 days during the relevant previous year and for 365 days or more in last 4 years. मतलब पिछले 4 साल में 365 दिन इंडिया में रहा हो, या फिर लास्ट ईयर में मतलब पिछले साल प्रीवियस ईयर में 60 डेज या फिर उससे ज़्यादा रहा हो इंडिया में, तो उसको रेसिडेंट इन इंडिया माना जाएगा. द फॉलोइंग कंडीशन बी इज़ नॉट अप्लीकेबल इन केस ऑफ इंडियन सिटीजन और पर्सन ऑफ इंडियन ओरिजन. द फॉलोइंग सर्कमस्टांसेस. Exception: 60 days to be replaced with the 182 days for the following categories. अगर इंडियन सिटीजन है या फिर पर्सन ऑफ इंडिया ओरिजन है वो बीइंग आउटसाइड इंडिया, जो बाहर रह रहा हो, comes on a visit to India during the previous year and having his Indian income during the previous year less than 50 lakhs. Indian citizen who leaves India during the previous year for the purpose of employment, or Indian citizen who leaves India during the previous year as a member of a crew of an Indian ship, तो उस केस में ये 60 days रिप्लेस हो जाएगा 182 days. एक्सेप्शन: 60 days to be replaced with 120 days for the following category. Individual is an Indian citizen or a person of India origin and his Indian income during the previous year exceeds 15 lakhs. The individual in the situation is deemed as not ordinary resident in India. Deemed resident in view of section 6 subsection 1a of the ITA, Indian citizen is deemed as resident in India during the previous year if his Indian income during that year exceeds 15 lakhs and he is not liable to pay tax in any other country or territory by reason of his domicile or residence or any other criteria of similar nature. Such individual is deemed as not ordinary resident in India. These provisions are applicable notwithstanding the number of days of stay in India during the previous year. As per clause 29A in section 2 of the ITA, liable to tax in relation to a person means that there is a liability of tax on such person under any law for the time being in force in any country and shall include a case where subsequent to imposition of tax liability and exemption has been provided. However, it is clarified that if an individual is said to be a resident in India, then the provision of deemed residency will not apply in its case. Not ordinary resident. Where an individual is treated as a resident in India, he will be treated as not ordinary resident in India if he satisfies any one condition specified below. He has been a non-resident in India for at least 9 out of 10 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year, or he has been in India for 729 days or less during the a period of 7 years immediately preceding of the previous year. He is an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin having India total income during the previous year exceeding 15 lakhs and present in India for a period of 120 days or more but less than 182 days during the previous year. He is a citizen of India who is deemed to be a resident in India under section 6(1)(a) of the RTU. If he does not satisfy any of the above mentioned condition, he is treated as ordinary resident. तो नॉन ऑर्डिनरी रेजिडेंट के कुछ कंडीशंस हैं, जैसे कि पिछले 10 साल में मतलब पिछले 10 साल में वो 9 साल नॉन रेजिडेंट रहा हो, या फिर 729 डेज और लेस ड्यूरिंग द लास्ट 7 ईयर्स में इंडिया में रहा हो, या फिर थर्ड कंडीशन है कि वो इंडियन सिटीज़न हो या फिर ओरिजिन हो, इंडियन ओरिजिन हो, और उसकी एक जो इनकम हो वो 15 लाख से ज़्यादा हो, और जो डे है वो 120 डेज या फिर उससे ज़्यादा हो. Residential status of HUF. Residential status. HUF is said to be resident in India in previous year in every case except where during that year the control and management of its affair are situated wholly outside India. If principal decision makers of HUF take even a single decision in India, the HUF will be considered a resident as part of its control and management will be deemed to be situated in India. अगर HUF का जो डिसीज़न मेकर है वो अगर इंडिया में रहता है या फिर इंडिया में लेके कुछ डिसीजन लेता है तो वो रेजिडेंट ही माना जाएगा. नॉन रेजिडेंट. HUF deemed as a non-resident India if during the previous year the control and management of its affair are situated wholly outside India. अगर वो बाहर रह रहा है तो नॉन रेजिडेंट ही माना जाएगा. रेजिडेंट एंड नॉट ordinary resident. As resident HUF is further categorized into not ordinary resident in India if any of the following conditions are satisfied. The manager of HUF has been a non-resident in India for at least 9 years out of 10 years preceding the previous year, or the manager of HUF has been in India for 729 days or less during the period of 7 years. Residential status of a company. Indian company. An Indian company means a company formed and registered under the Companies Act. Indian companies are always treated as resident in India even if an Indian company is a subsidiary of a foreign company or it is controlled from a place located outside India. The Indian company is considered as resident in India. An Indian company can never be a non-resident person. Foreign company. A foreign company is treated as a resident in India if during the relevant previous year its place of effective management is in India. Residential status of firm, AOP, BOI or local authority, artificial judicial person. A firm or a AOP, BOI is or local authority or artificial judicial person is said to be resident in India in a previous year if any part of the control and management of its affair is situated in India during that year. If principal decision makers take even a single decision in India relating to the control and management of its affairs, the firm or AOP or BOI or local authority or artificial judicially person will be considered a resident as part of its control and management will be deemed to be situated in India. In other words, it is not necessary that substantial control and management should be situated or exercised in the area. A firm or AOP, BOI or local authority said to be non-resident in India in previous year if the control and management of its affair are situated wholly outside India. अगर इंडिया के बाहर है तो नॉन रेसिडेंट ही माना जाएगा. प्लेस ऑफ इफेक्टिव. तो द फाइनेंस एक्ट 2015 amended the residency test for a company wherein a company would be considered as resident in India if it is an Indian company or if the company's POEM, place of effective management, is in India during the relevant year. The POM was defined as a place where key management and commercial decisions that are necessary for the conduct of the business of an entity as a whole are in substance made. A foreign company is treated as resident in India if during the relevant previous year its place of effective management is in India. For determination of place of effective management, the Control Board of Direct Taxes has issued the guidelines in Circular Number 6 2017 dated foreign company whose gross turnover received during the year exceed 50 crore. A scope of the total income. Scope of total income, residential status. Resident and ordinary resident. Income received or deemed to be received by him in India in the previous year. Income source accrues or arises or is deemed to accrue or arises to him in India during such year. Income accrues or arises to him outside India during such year. Resident but ordinary resident. Income received or deemed to be received by him in India in the previous year. Income accrues or arises or is deemed to accrue or arises to him in India during such years. Income accrues or arises to him outside India during such year if it is derived from a business control in India or profession set up in India. Non-resident. In case of non-resident, SSC being an individual, HUF firm, company or other person following income shall be taxable in India. Income received or is deemed to be received in India by such person in the previous year, and income accrues or arises or is deemed to accrue or arises to such person in India during such years. Nature of income. Resident and ordinary resident. Resident but not ordinary resident. Non-resident. Income received और डीम्ड टू बी रिसीव्ड इन इंडिया टैक्सेबल टैक्सेबल टैक्सेबल, तीनों के केस में टैक्सेबल ही होगा. इनकम एक्रूज और अराइजेज इन डीम्ड टू एक्रू और अराइजेज इन इंडिया, तीनों में टैक्सेबल होगा. इनकम एक्रूज और अराइजेज आउटसाइड इंडिया इफ इट इज़ डिराइव्ड फ्रॉम ए बिजनेस कंट्रोल इन इंडिया, दोनों में नॉन रेजिडेंट वाला में नहीं होगा. इनकम एक्रूज और अराइजेज आउटसाइड इंडिया फ्रॉम ए बिजनेस कंट्रोल फ्रॉम आउटसाइड इंडिया और फ्रॉम ए प्रोफेशन सेटअप आउटसाइड इंडिया, टैक्सेबल not taxable. Characteristic of income. Gains arising from the transfer of securities held in the investee company or portfolio company may be treated either as capital gain or a business income for tax purpose, depending upon whether such securities were held as a capital assets or a trading assets. Following are the illustrative factor indicative of capital gains. Characteristics. Intention at the time of acquisition, capital appreciation, low transaction frequency, long period of holding, shown as investment in books of account, not a stock in trade, use of own fund as opposed to loan for acquisition. Main object in constitution document is to make investment. Taxation of various stream of income. In the Tax Act 1961, the income is computed under 5 heads of income, namely salary, house property, PGBP, capital gains, income from other sources. Total income is aggregated of income computed under these heads. In case of PMS, the investor is investing in the underlying securities through the PMS and not investing in the PMS per se. A PMS client may earn income from dividend per share and units of mutual fund income from interest on fixed income securities, short term and long term capital gain on sale of securities, debenture rights, renunciation units, etc. If gains are categorized as capital gains, business income from purchase and sale of securities, and if gains are categorized as business income, each such income has a separate tax treatment in the hands of PMS client as discussed in the following section. Capital gain. Any profit or gains arising from the transfer of a capital asset is taxable under the head of capital gains the previous year in which such transfer takes place. However, every transfer of a capital asset does not give rise to taxable capital gains because some transactions are either not treated as transfer under section 47 of the income tax act, or they are excluded from the meaning of capital assets, or they enjoy exemption under section 54 to 54 GB of the income tax act. Determination of income taxable under the head capital gains depends upon various factors such as period of holding, cost of acquisition, full value of consideration, etc. The nature of capital gains, that is short term or long term, is determined on the basis of period of holding on the capital assets. This distinction is important as incidence of tax is higher on short-term capital gains as compared to the long-term capital gains. Generally, the period of holding of a capital assets is calculated from the date of its purchase or acquisition till the date of its transfer. In general, a capital asset is deemed as short term if it is held by an SSE for a period of not more than 36 months immediately preceding the date of transfer. The general rule has few exceptions wherein assets held for not more than 12 months or 24 months are treated as short term capital assets. Following capital assets are treated as short-term capital asset if they are held for not more than 24 months immediately preceding the date of transfer. Unlisted share of a company, equity share or preference share, and immovable property being land or building, if they are held for more than 24 months immediate preceding the date of transfer, they are termed as long-term assets. Following the capital assets are treated as short-term capital asset if they are held for not more than 12 months. Listed shares of a company or recognized stock exchange, equity shares or preference shares. Listed securities, debenture, bonds, derivatives, government securities, UTI, units of equity oriented fund, zero coupon bonds. If they are held for more than 12 months immediately preceding the date of transfer, they are termed as long-term assets. As per the amendments in the Finance Act 2023, capital gains on redemption, transfer of units of a specified mutual fund, that is, mutual fund where not more than 35% in invested equity share of an Indian company acquired on or after 1st April 2023 or market linked. Any profits or gain arising from transfer of capital assets is taxable during the previous year in which such transfer takes place. The mechanism for computation of capital gains from transfer of a short-term capital assets is different from the one applicable in case of long-term capital assets. Computation of short-term capital gain: full value of consideration, expenditure incurred, cost of acquisition, cost of improvement, and examination. The indexed cost of acquisition shall be calculated in two-step process. The first step is to calculate the cost of acquisition of capital assets. In the second step, such cost of acquisition is multiplied with the cost of inflation CF of the year in which capital asset is transferred and dividend by CII of the year in which assets is first held by the SSE or CII of the whichever is later. The benefit of indexation shall not be available in the respect of following long-term capital assets: listed equity shares, units of equity-oriented mutual fund or units of a business trust. If the restaurant resultant capital gains is taxable under section 112A. Bond, debenture except capital index bond issued by the government and sovereign gold bond issued by RBI under the sovereign gold bond scheme 2020-2015. Slump sale, units purchased in foreign currency by offshore funds, securities as referred to in section 115 AD of the ITA purchased by FAI specified funds, GDR purchased in foreign currency, and unlisted securities referred under section 1112. Short-term capital gain is chargeable to tax at the rate 15% plus applicable surcharges. If such capital gains arises from transfer of securities being listed equity shares, unit of equity oriented fund, or units of this trust, and such transaction chargeable to security transaction tax. STT is not applicable. The short-term capital gain shall be taxable at applicable rate. Long-term capital gain is in excess of 1 lakh shall be chargeable to tax at the rate 10%. The cost of acquisition equity share units. Short-term capital gains on transfer of listed equity share 15%, 15%, 15%. Any other short-term capital gains? Assuming highest slab rate for individual investor, in the case of domestic companies having total turnover or gross receipt not exceeding 400 crores in the financial year 2021-22, the tax rate would be 25% plus surcharge. And as per section 115 BACYTA, OP BOISUF will have an option to pay tax on its total income at the reduced tax rates. The total income would, however, have to be computed without claiming prescribed deduction or exemption. Further, the Finance Act 2023 has provided that the rates under subsection 1A of section 115 BAC the cost of acquisition of equity shares of units of an equity oriented mutual fund acquired before 1st Feb 2018 shall be higher of the actual cost of acquisition and lower of fair market value of as 31st January 2018 value of consideration received or accruing upon transfer. The CBDT issued a notification date 1st October 2018 where the list of transactions has been specified in respect of which the provision of subclause without considering indexation and foreign exchange fluctuation benefit. Dividend income. The income of the nature of dividend or securities is taxable in the hands of SSE under the head income from other sources. Dividend usually refers to the distribution of profit by a company to its shareholders. However, certain receipts are also deemed as a dividend under the provision of the Income Tax Act 1961. The deemed dividend is defined in section 2, subsection 22. Distribution of accumulated profit to shareholder entailing release of the company's assets. Distribution of debenture stock or deposit certificate to shareholders out of the accumulated profits of the company and issues a bonus share to preference shareholders out of accumulated profits. Distribution made to shareholders of the company on its liquidation out of accumulated profit. Distribution to shareholder out of accumulated profit on the reduction of capital by the company. Loan or advance made by the closely held company to its shareholder out of accumulated profit. Dividend declared at an annual general meeting is deemed to be in the income of previous year of the shareholder in which it is declared, distributed or paid. The interim dividend is deemed to be the income of the previous interest income.